Hi, it's Steve, and I am here with Jim Womack. Jim, thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure to be here with you, Steve.
Thank you, sir. So, as you know, I'm looking at you as a freedom fighter, and along with everybody else that's been on the gallery. And let's start off this way. Tell me, how precious is freedom to you? What does it mean to you?
Well, I'm an older generation guy, part of the middle part of the baby boom, and I was raised with traditional Judeo-Christian values in a Christian church by a mom and a dad, and to be respectful of our country, our flag, and our Constitution. And that was inculcated throughout my educational process in public schools, all the way up through my attendance at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point from 73 to 77. And, there's never been any waver or doubt in my mind about what constitutes, the noble vision of our founding fathers and what's embedded in the spirit of our Constitution, which is the a spirit of liberty and family and country and commitment to service. And so I'm motivated to be a part of any noble effort to preserve the republic and to preserve our Judeo-Christian values, regardless of what the cost and what the commitment. That's what motivates me.
So, you were raised to be a patriot.
Yes.
Um, are you now active more than you ever were? Do you consider yourself, are you on a more special mission now than you have been in other times in your life?
Well, I'm active in a non-professional way, in a non-remunerative way. In other words, I don't get paid for the work that I do now. I do this as a public service, but I'm just as active as I've ever been. I mean, my 20 years of active military service, including a year and a half in a combat zone, um, those were paid for. Those professional exploits at that time. But and I did all of that in service of country. But no, I'd say that I'm just as active now, if not more so than I was before, and I don't get paid for it.
So would you call it a calling?
Yeah, I think it's a calling for all red-blooded Americans. I mean, we are, if you truly believe in the vision of the founders, if you truly believe in the Holy Bible as the moral code for our republic, if you truly believe that the Constitution, as originally framed, is intended to be the set the standards for the country and our behavior. If you believe in all of that, then you are almost obligated, if not committed both morally and physically to preservation of the republic and preservation of that we hold dear. So yeah.
You mentioned the importance of the Bible as a source of moral code. Um, Tell me about your relationship with God. Do you think God helps you, or do you help him?
Well, so I'm a born again Christian, and but I'm also a Zionist. I've made several trips to Israel, and I'm a big believer in a one state Israel. The Palestinians I've met over there also believe in a one state Israel. They have a better life living under Israeli control than they did when it was divided. But I'm a Judeo Christian believer. The whole Bible is my moral framework, and I in terms of my service to God, the triune God is what I believe in, and I believe that he not only is protects me, but I am in service to him. That's the way the relationship exists, and I love him and he loves me for it.
Do you find many people that feel the same way as you?
Yeah, the vast majority of people that I associate with are feel the same way. The believers tend to flock together.
Um, but I imagine some of the work you do now has you cross paths with the non-believers. What happens then?
Well, the beauty of our our constitutional framework allows you to be free to worship or to believe in any way that you wish, to include non-belief. So, we respect that as we respect all freedoms in America. Religious liberty is very important to me. So we come in contact with people of different faiths, people that have no faith. And, I'm obligated as an evangelical Christian to share the gospel with those at the appropriate time, and there are appropriate and inappropriate times to do that. But I let the word of God speak for itself. It's convincing on its own. I don't have to proselytize to the point of alienating people. But I do share the gospel with people that are curious, or that the good Lord puts in my path. But at the same time, I don't insist, like some in the Muslim faith do, that they have to convert or die. Obviously, that's a choice. That's an individual choice, and your personal relationship with Jesus is your personal choice, and it's one that you can choose or reject. But I come in contact with non-believers frequently. I come in contact with those that have a different philosophical view of the Bible. And we coexist because of our ultimate commitment to the Judeo-Christian framework is provided. It's embedded in our Constitution and provided through Mosaic law that undergirds everything we do as a legal nation. Most people don't realize that, independent of the Bible, that our system of laws and customs in this country have derived from Mosaic law over the centuries. And so, independent of the Bible, we still have the embedded nature of God's plan for how we should govern ourselves.
It seems to me, along the lines of that point, people really want America to be run as a constitutional republic. And as you just said, you need a moral framework in order to support people following a constitutional republic. So does that mean that really the underlying mission today to perfect freedom is a moral crusade, or a moral effort, as more than it is a political one?
Well, I think they're inextricably interwoven. The body politic in this country is a discourse. It's a conversation about how we should govern ourselves, and how we should organize, and how we should share power, and our faith, or the religious framework that has been a part of our history in the U.S. Is interwoven with that governmental framework. So those folks that tell you that they check their religion at the door when it comes to politics are really deceiving or self-deluding, that you can't separate religion and politics, just like God tells you can't separate him from anything without it becoming evil. So the way I view my worldview is that God is also inextricably interwoven in everything that you do that is holy and noble. If you separate God from anything that you're doing, then you're making it evil by its nature. Whether it's your law, or whether it's your way of life, or whether it's the way you raise your family, you separate God from anything, and then it becomes by its nature sin or evil, and that's biblical. That reference is, separation from God is eternally damned. So the way I tell people is that faith is a very essential part of everything that I do. It's in my fabric. It's in every ounce of my being. And so if there's something that they don't like about the way I operate, that doesn't mean that necessarily that they're evil. It just means that I need to take a hard look inward to make sure that I'm obeying God and what I'm doing, because I'm trying to obey him and his laws and everything that I do. And that it should be a part of everything that I do, whether it's, in politics, or whether it's in my personal life, or it's in my faith.
So you feel that if you are all you can be as a man of faith, that would perhaps inspire people who have not yet found faith?
I think it's divine. If the more that you can separate yourself from sin and follow God's holy word, the more able you are to serve him and in the most powerful force in the universe. So whether it's helping a person come to know Jesus, or whether it's a helping someone to understand God's nature and ways, or whether it's someone that wants to behave politically in a way that's pleasing to God. Though all those things stem from our obedience and our service to Him, and the more that we serve Him in the center of His will, the better able that we are to serve Him.
So you mentioned people needing to politically serve God. So um, do you feel then that we need to have more people of faith in political office?
We certainly should, and you'll hear pastors frequently say, "Well, you should vote your values," and that I certainly subscribe to that notion. But that's the softer way of saying to examine the platforms of the various political parties, know what they say, know what they intend uh, to for this country and its behavior, and then make your choice wisely about how you're going to vote. You should get to know the candidates for office and to find out what their source of faith is as well. Um, there are those that say, well, I don't vote my religion, I vote my party. And I would argue that that's not biblical. It's certainly not, that's not in service to God. Um, this may be offensive to some, but I am a bit of an expert on the platforms of the two major political parties. I have thoroughly examined the Democrat Party platform. Every 4 years it changes. In the summer of the even numbered years, it'll change again in June of next year. Every 4 years it changes, and every 4 years it becomes a little more separated from God and His will for the universe. The Republican Party has, generally speaking, has stayed the course with Judeo-Christian values. And for example, in the Democrat Party platform, you'll find that there's no mention of God other than 2 times where it mentions the aspirational um, um, will of children, and the God-given talents that children have. That's the only time that God's even mentioned. And prayer is never mentioned in the Democrat Party platform. And the Muslim faith is mentioned, I think at least 7 or 8 times, and about how it needs to be protected or preserved. There's no mention of radical Islamic nature or anything like that. In the Republican Party platform, it's the opposite. They talk about the Christian faith, the need for prayer, the belief in the Ten Commandments. All of that's in the Republican Party platform. So when people say, well, I separate my politics and my religion, well, the platforms don't, other than the Democrat Party platform, which completely separates itself from God. So, I tell people, don't just vote your values, vote your party platform, and know what it says. Because if you're voting for a Democrat, you're voting for a person who willfully associates with a party that is evil by its nature and separating itself as far as it can from God.
It's an interesting point. Although, let's say the Democratic platform is not specifically using the words "we're separating from God," by in effect, their platform, as you're characterizing, as being evil, um, which is a loaded
Yeah,
word.
yeah. So let me just add one case in point.
Yeah,
So I did a biblical values assessment some time back at the urging of Franklin Graham. He back in 2016 he was examining. This is just before he changed from being a Republican to unaffiliated, and he felt like his message could be better delivered as an unaffiliated as opposed to being labeled as a Republican. But his father was a lifelong Democrat, and Billy Graham. People didn't know that about Billy. He was a very devout, Christian, but he also was a affiliated Democrat, and he didn't pay much attention to the politics and what the platform said. But back in those days too, I would say that Billy Graham did, their platform did mention God frequently and eschewed evil things, unlike what it does today. But I would say that just take the case of abortion. In the Democrat Party platform, it talks about abortion being legal all the way up to and beyond the birth of a child, and that it is a decision that's made by the doctor and a mother or whatever, about whether that child should survive. In the Republican Party platform, it's very clear about abortion as an abhorrent practice, and that it should only ever occur under the most extreme situations, whether the life of the mother is at risk or whatever. So, I mean, And then they talk about repealing the Hyde Amendment in the Democrat Party platform, which is an evil move to remove the Hyde Amendment, which makes international abortions for military possible, so you can go anywhere you want to travel to go get an abortion. I mean, those are evil behaviors, and for them to espouse that and to protect that in their platform is an evil clinging. I mean, that Satan couldn't be happier that the Democrat Party platform is moving into that area. This whole notion of wokeness, it will appear in the 2024 platform for the Democrat Party. This whole spirit of wokeness will be there, and the awakening that we're having in the Republican Party is to decry those moves in society. And I'm sure that'll be appearing in the Republican Party platform. More and more, the two political party platforms are separating themselves. There's a huge chasm in terms of values, and you will see that the Republicans, even though we're evil, or even though we're sinners as well, the Republicans at least have a connection back to the laws as given to us by God and Moses, and to the original Judeo-Christian tenets that form this country. And you can't say the same for the Democrat Party platform.
I get that. Is that the foundation of your hope for the country, that at least the Republicans maintain the connection to our heritage? Or is there anything else that gives you hope? Or do you not have hope?
Well, there are differing grades of Republican adherence to the platform as well. We've got a senator from North Carolina that doesn't adhere to the platform at all and crosses over and votes with the left on many things, and he's been condemned for that. And my hope, my hope is in God and God alone. If my hope was in man, I would lose hope overnight, because we are all sinful in our nature. But the good news is that at least making the attempt to adhere to Judeo-Christian values and the tenets of the Holy Bible will at least give you a chance of hope. And with God's divine grace, I think He'll bless those that make the attempt to seek His favor, and I think He will punish those that seek to cause disfavor. So my hope is in Him and Him alone, and I do believe that through His guiding hand, just like Israel discovered many times in the Old Testament, just like Israel discovered, when you stray from Him, He'll punish you, and if you come back to Him, He'll show you favor. And I think that the same is destined for the U.S.
I get that. So you're placing a special emphasis on the uniqueness of the United States as a Judeo-Christian, as a country with a Judeo-Christian heritage, and you're stating that therefore, if we do what's right, we could merit God's blessing, implying that countries or peoples that don't strive in the same way will not receive God's blessings. Is that true?
I think that's correct. He's got His divine plan. It doesn't always make sense to some of us mortals, but He's got a divine plan, and I think those that have historically have followed His plan and operated in the center of His will, I think they've been blessed. In fact, I know they've been blessed. I mean, the history is replete with examples.
Very well said. Let's finish up with this. Let's talk about legacy. We've already established that this is going to be a generational war, repelling invaders, people who want to not just remove Jews and Christians, but remove Judaism and Christianity, and kind of neuter the United States and make us as directionless as any other nation. So having said that, think ahead to grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and a generation in 100 years from now. What do you want them to say about you?
Well, I hope they would remember me as a man of faith and a man of commitment to our country and service to the country and to God. That's what's important, and that's the reflection that people have on my service. I would hope that they would think that my life wasn't wasted pursuing selfish ambitions, but rather that it was a commitment to country and a commitment to service to the country, and to helping others get to know their Lord and Savior. That's what I want to be remembered as. In the meantime, my commitment is, now that I've raised my children, and the wife and I are in our senior years, my objective is now to commit as much effort as I can to free and fair elections in the state of North Carolina and around the country. That's what I do near full time. I chair a Republican Party county operation in my county. I serve on a conservative coalition that's statewide. Um, but the vast majority of my time is spent on trying to create the landscape for free and fair elections, whether it's through voter list maintenance or changing in the laws of North Carolina, advocacy for those changes, making sure that people are trained to observe and to report what they see, which are abnormalities in the elections. We need to restore confidence in our elections, because right now more than half the American public do not believe the election outcomes. And that's tantamount to revolution at some point. If the country does not come back around to trusting the counts on their elections, the nature of our constitutional republic is such that there will be a secession and a war at some point. We are different than most European monarchies that our people have to trust the peaceful transition of power through their elections, and when they fail to trust those, that foments insurrection in the country. And I don't want to see us fall apart as a country. So we really do need to restore confidence in the elections. And the only way that's going to happen is if we have free and fair elections, and the cheating and the manipulations are curtailed. So that's what I commit my time and my energy to.
Well, may God bless your efforts in that regard. I could see the premium importance of it. It's very clear that your life commitment to service has done you well. I think our viewers will feel encouraged and empowered by you. You come across very strongly. I want to thank you so much for sharing your inspiration and your strength, Jim. Thank you for joining us.
And thank you for having me on, Steve. I appreciate you.
It was my privilege.